And then there's a report from Hollywood reported that I've seen a while ago, like other like studies like this that I maybe wanted to briefly talk about. We don't have to get into like detail with this, but essentially they did like a study where it says that Gen Z wants less sex in movies and TV. And I found that quite interesting because we came back from a Venice Film Festival that had with Queer, with Baby Girl, a bunch of quite explicit sex scenes once again that I felt like were really holding the movie together. And I don't really get why there's a general sentiment of Gen Z not liking sex scenes. I get where it's coming from, where it feels in a way exploitative, whereas it's just to have the beauty of like a naked body or like sex for entertainment's sake, and it doesn't really add anything to the story. But I feel like they just in general would rather have that not be a part of it and just being like it being implied, or maybe it's completely stripped of it. But like almost half of the people who answered said like sex isn't needed for most TV shows and movies, and 44% said like romance is overused. I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. Like, would you generally agree that like romance and sex is overused in film, or yeah, where do you stand on this?
I guess it's a little bit interesting because I feel like I'm not sure where this. Okay, so sorry, forgive me. It's American viewers, so it is the West, and I feel like
yeah,
I feel like there is a different relationship in cinema with sex scenes depending on where it's set. Right? I feel like Hollywood has always been quite prudish when it comes to. Not French. I feel like they've always been quite prudish traditionally, and I think that there has eventually been a swing towards more sex positive scenes in film, and I think that it stemmed all of its way from like weird sex to like BDSM sex, like all these different types of genre, especially with like the rise of something like 50 Shades of Grey becoming super not successful, but like successful in the way that it was raunchy and scandalous to have that on screen. And it was, when you watch it, you go, this is nothing compared to anything that's coming out of the country of France, coming out of Eastern countries. And I think that's a very interesting kind of correlation that it's always like these studies always. I wonder what people think in Europe. I wonder what people think in Asia of sex scenes in movies, because I feel like in different areas, sex has a different kind of connotation. And I can kind of see that. I agree to this extent that I feel like sometimes sex scenes are used in a way that is not completely necessary for moving plot forward, but it's a great representation of how two characters feel. And yes, it can kind of be weird and awkward to watch on screen, but it can also be done in a way that's not super awkward and weird and yada, yada, yada. So, I don't know. I think it's a weird thing that they want less of it on screen, but it could also maybe be a weird correlation to the availability of porn, right? I feel porn is a great example of now it's super accessible. If you want to watch that, you can go watch that. You don't have to see it in that. So when people see it in their what's meant to be, non-porn related film, it's like, oh, wait, what the fuck? I don't want to watch this here. I have it on this device that's private browsing with a VPN on, and no one knows where I'm watching it, compared to my Netflix screen.
I think one of the things that has to be noted that by the Hollywood reporter that reported on this is that it doesn't really clarify. I would love to see like the actual study that they did and the questions that they've asked, because it very much influences how how you answer, because like a part of it is also like they found that a slight majority, 51% of 1,500 surveyed said they wanted to see more content about platonic relationships and friendships. So you could kind of interpret it, Gen Z wants less sex, but they were more asked about like, do you always want a like subplot of a romance in every single movie? And I would say, well, no, I would love to see a bit more platonic relationships, right? And then it's a completely different thing to be asked about. And I would love to see like the actual questions that they asked about it. Obviously, it doesn't have the same numbers for all of these. They asked them about like if sex is needed, right? And they had the answers to that. But I mean, I would kind of agree. I would be on the same side that like I love to see more platonic relationships and friendships be the core of a movie like this.
Could I ask you a question?
Of movies. Yep.
Remember Twisters?
Yeah. Oh my God. It was so annoying.
Why didn't they kiss? Lachlan, why didn't they kiss? They should have kissed in the end.
It's like, shut the fuck up.
It's funny because in arguments, in movies where they want less sex, a movie where there is no sex, and there is a romance plot line, but it's not front and center. It's kind of read between the lines. You can see something going on there.
Yeah.
But because nothing was put forward, that conversation now arises of, well, there should have been a romance plot point. So it's weird because certain movies don't necessarily need it. Was it Rebel Moon that has the weird love story? I mean, yes, probably is Rebel Moon. I've tried to erase that from my memory so that I can go in watching the director's clean. But I'm pretty sure there's a romance story in Rebel Moon that's just it's not necessary to anything. And I get it. In that kind of situation, yes. And I feel like there is a weird love relationship story in a lot of movies. But I feel like you're going to take away good drama from taking away romance or taking away sex scenes. And I think that there are going to be, like, I'm going to assume We Live in Time has a sex scene. That's an upcoming, like, romance drama. And if it doesn't have that sex scene in it, might be like, oh, okay, these guys are prudish. They don't have sex. That could be the correlation because you don't have that particular scene in there with the relationship or whatever that relationship is. Right?
I mean, it's also about intimacy,
over there, so
right?
I'm using it. Yeah.
Yes,
it is as well. I'm only using it because it's literally on this screen over here. I haven't seen the movie. Don't know about it. Anything about it. Yada yada yada. But like,
one of the critiques coming out of Call Me by Your Name, right, by some critics for Luke Guadagnino was that like he like pans away from like a sex scene, I think, happening, right, and kind of goes to the bushes, and it's implied. And I've heard people that we met in Venice like say queer feels like an answer where like there's like a sex scene, right, and it kind of cuts away from it and it just cuts back to it, as even if it's like a fuck you to those who are like, oh yeah, you're being too prude, well here you go, here's the whole fucking thing. So like it's in certain films it just kind of makes sense for that to be a core of it, like movies like Queer. It would make no sense to have that sort of intimacy and that thing there, like the drive for sex and pleasure, and then also the drugs in that film, to leave that away. I can get why there's a critique for it in like more general movies, but I feel like blockbusters are already so clean that were like it was a big outcry when like for The Eternals they had a sex scene in it. I was like, I don't know if that's that big a deal, you know, in the overall scheme of things. But yeah, we'll keep reporting on watching all of the sex scenes in every movie out there.
I will go through every sex scene in the history of cinema and I'll get back to you to decide whether or not we should actually have them or not.